Welcome back. Technology, like art, is a soaring exercise of human imagination. Now, that particular quote is brought to us by Mr. Daniel Bell, and I felt that it was a nice way to get our discussion started because our discussion will focus on technology. More specifically, technology and the way it can be used to support a business and especially a small business. So now, when we talk about using technology as far as our businesses are concerned, the question that I'm asked over and over again without hesitation is, what should I buy? And that's a good question because that shows that the business owner, he recognizes the need to purchase a device that can help him streamline his business, but he's at a loss as to what product he should buy because as we sit here, there are thousands of products that are being shipped, thousands are being developed, and thousands are being purchased. So now out of all of the different varieties and brands, what should you purchase? Well, first of all, when we talk about technology, especially if we zero in on personal computers, there has been a shift nowadays. There's been a shift from owning one device to owning multiple devices. And so we'll talk about that later on, but that shift is because individuals want the ability to remain mobile as they finish different assignments that have to do with their business. They want to be able to be productive while they're moving. And then too, that shift has also occurred because if your business is relying on one computing device, when that computing device fails, then it's going to have an effect on your business. The tasks that you would usually get done during the day, you're going to have some difficulty. And I've seen even in some cases, the failure of that one device has caused individuals not to be able to check out. Individuals come to purchase something from them because their device is down, their main device, the only one that they have. Now they can't do transactions because of that. So it's necessary to switch from the thought of having one device to having multiple devices. But as I mentioned, we're going to get into that. So now, what should you buy? The question that's posed, this is going to come up several times during our discussion because what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify the process that's used to purchase the devices, to pick them out, to purchase them. And then it's necessary to do that because we want to make sure that each device is tailored towards your needs. This is not a cookie cutter situation here. Everyone's needs are different because everyone's business is different. So we want to make sure that we're catering to the needs of your business. So as far as personal computers are concerned, they fall into three categories really. You have the desktop, the laptop, and then you have tablets. But in addition to that, in addition to the personal computers, you also have smartphones. And smartphones fall into the category all by themselves because they are totally mobile devices. They go with us as we go. So now, until lately, we noticed something that's very odd in the market. Until just lately, within the last 10 years, there has been a move toward hybrid devices. Because you see, it used to be that desktop, laptops, and tablets were all categories by themselves. But now you see the lines between the three beginning to blur. And I'll tell you what I mean. So when I say hybrid devices, think in your mind, have you ever heard these terms? Okay? All-in-one desktop. You probably heard that. What about two-in-one laptops? Right? And then when it comes to tablets, hybrid tablets, have you ever heard of that phrase? Well, when we mention hybrid devices, we are taking into consideration that these particular devices serve more than one purpose. Because let's take, for example, a two-in-one laptop. So because it's a laptop, then we expect that the performance and the speed would be on par with a desktop. Because of advancements in technology, the current laptops are just as fast or even faster than some desktops. So you have the power and the speed of a desktop. You have the portability of a laptop. And then because this particular laptop has a hinge on it that has 360 degree field of motion, then that means that you can turn that laptop into a tablet. So now you have all three covered. You have the power and the speed of a desktop, you have the mobility of a laptop, and then you have the touch screen ability of a tablet. So you have all three covered. And that's what we mean by hybrid devices. And hybrid devices are, in my opinion, a better buy because you're getting access to more features that allow you to do more with one device. Now, as I mentioned, we're not relying on one device. That's not the focus. But if an individual absolutely had to have just one device, then a hybrid or a two-in-one laptop may be the way to go. But for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to discuss two devices at a minimum, okay? So now, when you look at some facts and figures, let's take them into consideration. Let's compare how many desktop, laptops, and tablets were shipped in 2020. And then you'll see just what I saw. It was a strange coincidence that's happening here. But it really speaks to what the individual who comes to purchase a device, what they're really looking for. They want the best of all worlds. But now notice this. In 2020, 94 million desktop units were shipped. So 94 million for desktops. 173 million laptop units. And then notice this. 159 million tablets. So those are the units that were shipped. So now look at that. Out of the three, the desktop is the lowest one as far as shipping is concerned. And that's an indication as to what's being purchased. Then we see the highest one is the laptop with 173 million, but not far behind a laptop or tablets at 159 million. So do you see individuals are beginning to pull away from the stationary desktop? Because in the world that we live in, most individuals you meet who own businesses, they are on the run. They are on the go. They're not stationary. And so they need a device that can go with them. And so that's why you see that spike in shipping for laptops and tablets. So now let's go a little bit further. As we mentioned, those individuals who are purchasing, we can see that they favor a form factor that's portable. Now, keep that in mind as we go through our observation of what's going on in the market in regards to desktop, laptops, and tablets, because more than not, that market information will help us to make a decision as to which devices we need to purchase, because it's an indication of which devices individuals are having more success with. The amount that are shipped out, the amount that are purchased, the ratings that each device receives suggest where the most successful path will be for us to take in regards to purchasing one of these devices. So now, once again, I still haven't answered the question, have I? What do I need to buy? Well, now we're getting down to the essentials of each device, okay? So at this point, it would be wise to make a checklist. If that's what you're going to do, if you're in the market to purchase, it would be wise to make a checklist. And why am I suggesting that this checklist be made? Because you don't want to rely, and I mean no disrespect, but you do not want to rely on salespeople to have your best interests at heart. You need to do the research. You need to be familiar with your own needs so that when you purchase a device, it will be at a price that you're comfortable with, but at the same time, you'll still be able to meet all of the requirements that you have for your daily life and for your business. Let's go forward. So now we talked about the form factor situation. So you would choose either a desktop, a laptop, or a tablet. In addition to those three, you would choose a smartphone. So now, in regards to the desktop, laptop, tablet, because I've had much success with Intel in the past, that's what I recommend. So in looking at a processor, you have the i3, the i5, the i7, and just lately they've added the i9. But for the purposes of our discussion, we're going to look at the i3, the i5, and the i7. So when you look at the i3, usually the i3 would be suggested for individuals who just have everyday tasks that they would like to achieve on their laptop, desktop, or their tablet. Just everyday tasks. Nothing in particular, maybe checking emails, maybe looking at Facebook, surfing the web, things of that sort. When you look at the i5, now we're getting into more powerful computing. And usually, just to give you an example, an i5 is recommended for an individual who's about to go to college, because now you need more processing power, because we anticipate that the college student is going to be doing multiple things on that device at one time. They may be typing out a paper while listening to music, or they may be streaming in the movie at the same time while they're typing out notes. A whole lot of things we expect that they will be doing with this particular device. And then when we look at the i7, the most powerful of the three, we recommend the i7 mostly for individuals who have a business. Now this would be their main device, but it won't be their only device, as we mentioned. So there you have it. i3 for general use. Then you have the i5. Now you're getting more advanced computing power, but then the i7 is for business. It's the strongest of the three. And you'll find that all three of these are provided to you or offered to you in most of your technology stores. Best Buy, Walmart, Target, places of that sort. You can find these particular processors. They're very common and very popular. Now let's go on to the next thing that we should consider, the RAM, or the random access memory. Because you see, RAM works along with the processor to complete the task that you assign to the device. So the processor and the RAM are very important. So now, in regards to how much RAM you would need, 4 gigs is usually just enough to turn the computer on and have it run for you. And then you would notice that from 6 to 8, now that's general use. Most of the time, if an individual has a device that is between 6 and 8 gigs of RAM, then that means that in the future they won't have problems with large updates. They'll have enough RAM to download the updates, installed, and then have the person who purchased the device to continue to use it. So you're future-proofing at this point. You're getting ready for the future because you know that updates are coming. But then when you go from 8 gigs of RAM and up, now that's for power users. That's for individuals who are using their device for a certain purpose. Maybe they're doing CAD drawings. Maybe they're using Adobe Creative Cloud Suite and they're making videos, or maybe they're editing photographs. See, from 8 gigs on up is necessary for individuals who, as we mentioned, they have a certain condition that has to be met in order to run a program that they need. All right? And then the next thing we'll talk about is storage space. Now, there are 2 kinds of storage space that usually accompanies these devices. You have the regular HHD. You have the regular HDD. That's the regular spinning hard drive. And then you have the SSD, solid state hard drive. So when you look at the two and you make comparison, the solid state drive would be better than the regular hard drive, because with the solid state drive, there are no moving components inside of it. So it's prone to continue to working, whereas the spinning hard drive is prone to failure. So that's one thing. But then also, because of the fact that it uses flash memory, then that means that you can access information from it or more quickly than you can from a regular spinning hard drive. And so usually what individuals do is the operating system, the software that they need to run that's important to them, they put it on the SSD, and then pictures and videos and miscellaneous files they put on the regular spinning hard drive. And so what happens is the computer itself comes up faster, it boots faster, the program run faster because they're making use of SSD instead of the regular spinning hard drive. So now, in regards to storage, any SSD that you have will be better than storage that's supplied by a spinning hard drive, okay? Let's say that out front. But now in regards to the hard drive space that you might need, between 250 or 256 for a solid state drive, that's about normal. That's about just enough for most people. Then when you get to between 500 and 512, that's general use. That's what most people buy. So if you're in that range, that's about the mid-range, that's what most people purchase. But then when you get to a terabyte or above, a terabyte is more than 1,000 gigs. So when you get to a terabyte or above, now you're in power user area. So as we mentioned, with the processor, the i7, you're in power user mode. And then with 1 terabyte or more, now you're getting over into the power user mode as well. So now we talked about the processor, we talked about the RAM, and then we talked about the hard drive space. Now for mobile devices, this is a little bit different, okay? Now most of the recommendations that we made for desktop, laptops, and tablets, they hold true in regards to the RAM and in regards to the storage space, okay? But now with smartphone processors, we're looking at the latest one. The latest smartphone processor from Snapdragon is the 888. It's an 8-core device, very fast. And then the latest from Apple is the A14 Bionic. And so that's necessary for the conversation because really it takes into consideration the two. You have two. You have individuals that favor Windows, you have individuals that favor Apple, but at any rate, these recommendations can assist you with choosing out the brain. So let's go a little bit further. As we mentioned, it's necessary for you after you made that checklist, you found the device that's in your price range, immediately check to see, maybe on Best Buy site, maybe on Amazon site, check to see what are the ratings for this particular device, and then go down through the comments and see what are some of the difficulties that individuals have had with this particular device. What are some of the pros and cons? That's what we're looking for, because I want you to be well aware of what you're purchasing, because if you're well aware, then that means that when things come up, you'll be anticipating them and you'll know how to fix them, okay? That's the point of it. So now that we've said all that, and we've said quite a bit, I know I'm talking kind of fast on this because you got to understand this is how I live. So I'm acclimated to the subject. So let's do a practical real world example, okay? Let's say, for instance, we have an individual who is a web developer. So now, how would I recommend a computer for this particular person? Well, the first thing I would ask that person is, what is the main program that you use? The main program that you have to have in order to meet the needs of your customers. And let's say, for instance, that this person tells me that they use Adobe Creative Cloud, and in amongst it, they use primarily Adobe Dreamweaver. So what I would do then is take that information and I would go and look at the specifications for Adobe Dreamweaver. What does this program require to function at its best? Now I'll read you a couple of things. These are the requirements. You need an Intel Pentium 4 or an AMD Athlon 64 processor. You need Microsoft Windows 7 all the way up to 10. You need 2 gigs of RAM. You need 1.1 gigabytes of hard disk space for the installation. You need a 1280 by 1024 display, or as we mentioned, a 16-bit video card, which is usually standard in most laptops. And then you need an internet connection that's fast enough to connect to the Creative Cloud. So, having that in mind, now, what you can do is, and this is a rule of thumb, you start with the basics that I mentioned. That means the entry level devices that we have. Start at the basic, the entry level, and then you take the recommendations or the requirements that are needed for your particular program and you stack them on top of that. Okay? So we start off with 4 gigs of RAM, right? We start off with an i3, and then we start off with a 500 gig hard drive. Okay? So now, in looking at and reviewing the requirements, the first thing we notice is, in addition to the 4 gigs of RAM, it would be good if you could get 6. So you have the 2 gigs of RAM that are dedicated primarily to Dreamweaver, and then you have 4 gigs of RAM that allow you to do multitasking and other things that are in the background without having to worry about whether the device is going to slow down in speed. Okay? And then the 500 gig hard drive would be good. That would be nice. But because of the fact that he's going to be using web developing that program, it may be better if he has a 256 gig or a 512 gig solid state drive that he uses along with the 6 gigs of RAM that he has. So now, what kind of processor would I recommend? Well, as I mentioned, you have the i3, which is standard. That's entry level. And so because of the fact that he's going to need more computing power, I would recommend either the i5 or the i7. But in most cases, I'll go with the i5 because the i5 is suited to this kind of work. It's suited to handling various programs all at one time, just like the i7. But the difference between the two is the i5 in most cases is more affordable. Okay? So now, as I mentioned, in any time that you're looking to buy a PC, take those baseline requirements, okay? 4 gigs of RAM, 500 gig hard drive, and then you want to have a i3 as the processor. That's just standard. That's just baseline. I don't go below the i3 because I want all of the functions that a person wants to use in their everyday life to be met. That's why I start at an i3, okay? So now, what would be my recommendation for him because he's a web developer? Well, I have several friends that are in web developing, and most of them that I've seen, they have a laptop. So in purchasing a laptop, what can an individual do? Well, as we mentioned, a 2-in-1 laptop would serve their needs, but then in addition to that, in case they wanted a more desktop-like look and feel, what they could do is, in addition to purchasing the 2-in-1 laptop, they could also purchase a wireless keyboard and mouse combo, as well as a monitor that supports HDMI. So now, why am I including those two devices in addition to the laptop? Because what you can do is you can set up at home, you can set your desk up, and you can have an HDMI cable that's ready to connect to the laptop. And then you can connect the portable keyboard and mouse that's wireless. And then you can configure your laptop to when you close the top on it, it remains on. And so what happens at this point is that the HDMI out on the laptop will project the screen from the laptop onto the larger monitor. And the wireless keyboard and mouse combo that you have connected to the laptop will allow you to enter text and interact with various programs on your computer. So what you've essentially done is created a desktop out of your laptop. And so that device would do well. But now, in addition to that particular device that he has, then he would also have maybe a tablet and a smartphone. So now, the tablet would be used in situations where he may be traveling and he doesn't want to take along his laptop, so he has his tablet, and he picks a tablet that would allow him to accomplish the majority of the things that he needs to do without bringing the laptop along. And of course, he'll have his smartphone with him because even though the lines between the desktop, laptop, and tablet have begun to blur, we have not yet fully mastered a way to incorporate a smartphone into that arena. I'm sure it's on the way. I'm sure there's a laptop somewhere that can make and take calls. Even though I'm not aware of it, I'm sure it exists, okay? So now, in review, what did we learn? What did we learn? We learned that the lines between desktops, laptops, and tablets are beginning to blur. And in response to that, many of the manufacturers are making hybrid devices that give you the best of all three worlds. Then we learned that there are distinctions in regards to processors, RAM, and hard drives. But really, the main thrust of that particular consideration is that the baseline for any device that you would purchase would be 4 gigs of RAM, an i3 for a processor, and then 500 gigs of hard drive storage. That's the baseline. So anything that you need would be in addition to that baseline, okay? And then we talked about the nice example of the individual who is a web developer and how he was able to use his 2-in-1 laptop that he had purchased to finish the task that he needed to as a web designer. And we walked through how it was that we reached the point that he needed to buy a 2-in-1 laptop. And then also how he could go in and set up his desktop, and he could take the monitor as well as the wireless keyboard and mouse and simulate a desktop look and feel with his laptop. So now I hope that this particular discussion was one that would benefit you. This is the 4th video in the series, and we are thankful that you came back to take a look at this video. As always, we ask you to like, comment, and subscribe. You know it's free. It's right down at the bottom. The only thing you have to do is just click subscribe. As always, we hope the day goes well for you. Be easy.